Awesome. And once we're familiar with the basic setup of styled components, now let's take a look how we can wrap our React component in the styled component and what are the benefits. So the syntax is following where, again, we want to get the styled in the particular component, in our case, landing page. Then we want to set up the element. In my case, I'm going to go with main. And then we want to apply the styles for the entire component. And then we want to wrap our component in whatever variable we set up over here. And again, common convention is calling this wrapper. So this is going to be the only component where we'll set up the styles together, because in the process, I'll showcase some benefits of styled components. And after that, we'll import all of the styles from the assets. Just please keep in mind that this wrapper is only responsible for styling. So it's not going to add any kind of logic. So let's try this out, where first I want to go to landing.js. I want to get my styled. So import styled from styled components. And then let's come up with the variable name. Again, typically it's a wrapper. You can place it above, you can place it below. That part doesn't really matter. So let's go here with const wrapper is equal to styled. And what is the main element that I'm returning here? That is main, correct? So if you have div, of course, type here div. So I'm going to go here with main. And instead of main, we want to place here this wrapper. So once we have this one in place, now we can start adding those styles. And before we do that, let me first just go back to app.js, remove this logic, and also this one over here. And then if we'll take a look what we're getting back as far as the main, notice this unique class. So we didn't set this one up. This one gets added right away the moment we start using styled components. So we still have the main element, only in this case, we have this unique class. And as a result, every time we'll have, for example, container, it actually will be selected with this unique class and then the container, which again allows us to avoid the name collision. So I can use the same basic class names in all my components. If I wrap it in styled component, they will get that unique class name. And then we can just use the basic classes. So I can use container in all my components or page or whatever. So let's navigate to the styled main and let's just apply some styles. So first I want to style the nav. I want to give it some kind of width. Let's say here that it's going to be a CSS variable. Now this is located in the index CSS. And the variable name is fluid and then width. I believe it was 90 view widths or something along those lines. After that, we want to go with max width. So on the big screen, there's going to be a max width. And for this one, we're going to go with another CSS variable, max width. There's an error. Then we want to place it in the center. So let's set up a margin 0 auto. So now notice it's actually sitting there in the middle. Then let's add a little bit of height. And for this one, again, I have the CSS variable, so var, and then nav height. And also we want to go with display flex and place the items in the center. So display flex, and let's place it vertically in the center. So we're going to go here with align items, and let's set it equal to a center. And yep, now of course it is. Then let's target the page. So container is actually a global class that we're using. So we're not going to use the wrapper to select the container. However, we will select the page. So let's go below the nav. Let's say that we're targeting a page class. And then we're going to go with some kind of min height here. And in my case, I'm going to go with calc function. So I'm going to say 100% of the screen height minus whatever is the nav height. So let's target here again, nav height. And then we're going to go with display grid. Now let me add here a semicolon. So let's say here display, and this is going to be equal to display grid. We're going to go with align items and then center. So essentially we'll place everything in the center of our page. And then let's remove a little bit of margin on the top. So margin and top will be equal to -3 REMs. Essentially, we're just lifting the content a little bit. Now, you don't have to, but that is at least my preference. Then let's go to styles and target heading 1. We're going to go with font weight, and that will be equal to 700. So now essentially our fonts are a little bit bolder. Now it's also cool that in a styled component, we can nest the selector. So what that means is that in the heading 1, we have the span. So I can go here with the span, so I can select it in the main wrapper. Or I can say, you know what, get me the span. That is only inside of the heading 1. Just keep in mind one thing, where if you'll set up some kind of style logic later, then you'll also have to repeat this, because this one is more specific, because we go with heading 1 and then the span. So if, let's say, later on you set up a hover, then you also need to repeat this, where you go with heading 1 and then span. And therefore, even though this is a very cool feature and you can nest this as deep as you want, essentially I always try to avoid that, because again, it's a pain in the neck if you later on have some kind of styles, because you need to repeat the structure. So if it's 1 level deep, yeah, that's awesome. You can definitely do it. But then if it's like 3 or something deeper, then I usually don't do that. I just select it somewhere here in wrapper, because it makes my life easier later on. And for the span, I just want to add the primary color, which again is a CSS variable. Let's save it. And now, of course, we have different color. Then let's target the paragraph. Now for paragraph, we just want to add a little bit of different color. So we're going to go here with color var, and this CSS variable is gray 600. And on a small screen, I want to hide the image. So right after the paragraph, we want to go with main img, and then let's go with display and none. So this is going to be our result on a small screen. And before we set up the media query for the big screen, I also want to showcase one more time, where since we use the styled component, we get this unique class. And now notice, since we were targeting this page, we first get this class from the parent, from the wrapper, and only then we get the page. And I know I said this before, and I know it's probably already annoying at this point, but what that means is that in any other component, I can use this page class and it's not going to collide. So these styles are only applied for this component because I have the unique class and then I have the page. And as a result, it makes my life easier because I don't have to come up with, I don't know, error page or a login page or whatever page name. I can simply go with page and everything is going to work. Hopefully that is clear. And now let's finally set up that media query. Let's go here with media. Now the syntax is tiny bit different, where we don't need to go with and screen and all that. We just go with min width. Then let's go with 992 pixels. And at that screen size, here's what I want to do. I want to set up a 2-column layout with some kind of gap. And I also want to display the main image. So first, let's target the page, which is going to be the parent for both of them, for the info, and the second column, the image column. So in here, let's go with grid template columns. Remember, we already set it up right away as display grid. We just went with one column, the default one. So let's say grid template columns, and that one will be equal to 1 fraction and 1 fraction. So 2-column layout. And let's also add column gap, and that will be 3 REMs. And also, I want to display that image. So main img, the class that I was targeting before. And now let's just go with display and block. And if everything is correct, then this is what we should see on a big screen. So now let me make this smaller just so we can see. Yep, That's going to be the look on a small screen, and this is going to be the look on a big screen. Again, the main takeaways: we import styled from styled components. We set up whatever element we want. We come up with the variable name, and we just wrap our return in that variable name. And then in here, we set up the styles. And they are applied only to this particular component. So we don't need to worry about the name collisions. This nav is only going to be styled this way in this particular component.